our plans are still tight. Thursday brings a smile. Promise I won't be putting up with this bull in a little while. Me and my girls, we turned it up last week.
Woo! Good morning and welcome back to LoveBabz, LoveTalk. I'm Babz Rawls-Ivy. I got all the artists on this morning. Good morning, Creative Arts Workshop people. How are y'all doing? Unmute yourselves. Everybody's all muted.
We're great, thanks.
So
Good morning.
Listen, y'all are doing Made Visible, Origins and Belonging, an exhibition that tells the stories rooted in the communities, the commonalities of Black and Brown identities. And so I didn't realize this was the 5th installment of Made Visible series, because I was in the last one under Nico Okado. And I was so excited to be a part of it, to be like hanging with the artists. So tell me about this this installment. Who's the curator? Oh, Kim Weston, my good friend Kim Weston, is the curator of this motley group of artists. So tell me, how did y'all come to be a part of this exhibit, and what does it mean to have commonalities between Black and Brown identities?
So Babz, I'm going to jump in because...
Hey, Trina.
Hi, I'm Trina Learned. I'm the executive director here, Creative Arts Workshop, but I'm not the voice you want to hear. You want to hear, we have 3 of the 9 artists here today. It's been a fabulous show. It's been extremely well received, and we've had wonderful community participation, including an artist talk that all 3 of the artists on your program today were a part of. So in terms of answering your incredibly wonderful questions, these are the people you want to talk to.
All right. Hi, Aisha. Aisha, is it Aisha?
Mm-hmm. Aisha, yes.
Aisha and Bethany, and I already know the very lovely and talented Shonda Holloway, because I have artwork of hers hanging in my house as we speak. So how are y'all? Tell me about the commonalities between Black and Brown communities. When you say that, when that's said, what exactly are we talking about?
So my name is Aisha Naila. Hi, I just wanted to clarify that. For me, it is realizing, and it's in a basic level, just realizing all the things that we know about each other that we didn't know about each other. You know what I mean? In the sense that the things I know about myself, I kind of know about other Black and Brown people without having the conversation. But then when we introduce ourselves to each other, it's like, oh, I know you because I know me. So that's what I felt in our conversations around the art and talking about who we were as artists, where we were from, the themes that were coming up in the individual pieces, and how much they were really overlapping without a good majority of us even knowing each other and knowing that about our art. The things that, like for myself, practicing an African traditional religion, and then having another artist, I believe his name was Juan, and he's from Colombia, and he practices the same. So when I was talking about it, it instantly just like struck something in him, and he's like, wow, we're that close, we're not that far away. So that's how I felt about it.
Okay. Bethany?
Very similar to Aisha. It was really interesting to see how the diaspora really played a role in all of us, being from various places. I mean, your origins can be from a completely different country than the person sitting next to you, but you might have that same experience of growing up in New England. And it's kind of this really interesting point that comes into play where, we are our origins, but we're also, the place that we're currently at. And I think that in terms of brownness and Blackness, that is also a really interesting commonality between all of us.
Okay. Chandra?
Oh boy. First of all, I think it's a blessing to be able to come together with all these different artists from different places and different origins. And there is a common thread just in terms of marginalization. And also, when you come together, your individual voice can be amplified even further. And this is what I get out of this exhibition, the opportunity to make even more room. So, yeah, that's my
So
opinion
in
about it.
talking about these commonalities, is it a good time to be a black artist right now? Is it a good time to be a black and brown artist? And are you finding enough places to show your work? I mean, I feel like I've seen more BIPOC artists in the last couple of years in spaces than I have in a very, very long time. And I think that's a good thing. Not nearly enough, but I'm starting to sort of see a real interest in, particularly at the local level, of artists and people curating black and brown artists. Is that the experience y'all are having?
Um, yeah, I mean, like, I feel like it's a good time. I hope it's not being fetishized. You see what I'm saying? Like, in the moment, this is the flavor of the moment because of, various reasons. Um, you know, it is helping though for us to get out there, but it's tough too because you're very much like, I'm very much a black artist, but I'm very much just an artist as well. You know what I mean? And that's the whole conversation, like duality of things. Like, yes, I need you to understand the language in which I'm speaking through my blackness in my art. However, I'm still very much just an abstract artist as well, abstract figurative, multidisciplinary, blah blah blah. So um, that's where it can get a little tough in terms of like longevity and how far you go and what have you. But yeah, right now in this moment, yes, it's fun. It's nice, feels good. But I like I said, I really do hope that it's not just the flavor of the month. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'd like to respond to that question. I think it's a good time, but I think it's time for artists to do the work. And I know personally, Aisha and Kim Weston, and I'm sure Bethany, like, we do the work. And the thing is to create foundation that go underground and intersect, interconnect, and not just with artists in your region, but in different states, in different countries. And I feel like that is the way to make sure that, we're just here, period, regardless of whether or not it's a trend or not. That's very important to me to make sure that there is a presence at all times. And, I feel as though, nobody makes a sandwich. Nobody wants a sandwich until you make one. Nobody's hungry until you make a sandwich. So you just gotta like go ahead and just keep doing the work, and I really am seeing the result of the work. And 'tis true, most of what we do becomes a trend, right? But there's also that longevity that going nowhere for the people who are doing the work and setting an example for other people to go ahead and make this happen, continue it. I ain't going nowhere. Basically, yep.
Bethany, did you have something you wanted to say about this?
Doing the work and having a strong studio practice that you're sustaining out of your own free will, I think gives you this real sense of autonomy over your artwork. I think about various artists like photographer Ming Smith, who, has been making her entire life and is now in her 70s and is just now getting the recognition. I mean, she was a part of Kamange Workshop. She was doing the work in the 70s in New York. And now it's like everybody wants to jump on it. But the work itself speaks for itself. It's not like, she's waiting till it becomes a trend. She was making it for no eyes, right, only her own. And I think as long as we keep doing that, our work stays fresh and we're not just putting out, what certain groups want to see from us. And it's actually real and it's tangible and it's ever evolving.
So Trina, you are the executive director of the Creative Art Workshop that has a whole gallery, and you have to decide what gets shown in that gallery. And we are in this very interesting moment of trying to center BIPOC artists in spaces where they haven't historically been centered. How do you? I mean, I know you have a board and all of that. How do you come to this work? How do you think about this?
Oh, what an excellent question. It's not easy, I will say that. This show is part of a continuum, a 5 years continuum, and is extremely important to Creative Arts Workshop. It is very important to our funders, and let's be honest, without our funders, certain things can't happen. So I need first to keep the doors open, and then second to be able to sponsor these shows. But we also, I've worked with Kim on other shows, and I'm very excited about working with Kim. Shauna is a wonderful member of CAW. And so that's really important to us, but mainly it's very important for me as executive director to honor artists. And this is an extraordinarily strong show. And it's interesting for us because it follows our Anne Lehman show, which was a very different sort of strong show. That was a show from one of the founders, a sculptor, a metal sculptor. And when Kim Weston came and curated and hung the show, as soon as it was on the wall, we walked around the space and we were just so strongly moved by the authority that the work in this show has, and how much it holds the space, how much it commands the space, and therefore what it brings to CAW. So yes, it's always difficult trying to understand what show should come next, and with the loss of art space in New Haven, we have fewer options to show artists. But it's certainly our mission here at CAW to support as many artists and really bring a wide variety and representation of art and artists from around, not just New Haven, but around the area.
So when you all decided to say yes to this curated exhibition, what made you say yes? Did y'all know the other artists? Were you excited by that? Like, what's the drawing card to make you say yes to an exhibit?
For me, it was Kim Weston. I mean, that is a really powerful person, not typical means of power, but Kim is everywhere, and Kim's presence, I feel like she dabbles in everything, and she is what all of us are, right? So for me, I met her through a program I run at the Amistad Center for Art and Culture called Snap Photography, and it was handled, teenagers, right? And the sort of standards she holds them to. And I'm like, if you are taking these student artists who, are still figuring out, what they're trying to do, and you're empowering them, like, I know what you're going to do for all of us. And I think that she succeeded, immensely, and still in Kim's style in every aspect, in her own fashion. But I think, my trust was in the curator. And I feel like for Black and Brown people, that can be kind of difficult, especially when institutions are super colonial and have deep-seated issues related to white supremacy. So I think it helps in a lot of other aspects. We all have to work together. And I think it helps when you do have people sitting in the curatorial seat or in, the registraral seat who are people of color, because it kind of creates this sort of safety.
Anyone else want to speak to why they say yes to exhibitions, or what makes you say yes to a particular exhibition?
Yeah, I would agree with Bethany in terms of the comfortability of, the curator and what have you. Like Kim, I've exhibited with Kim multiple times, and it's always, a good experience. She comes from a very humble place, and you can see her heart and feel her heart. And I've curated many things. I ran a gallery and have dealt with other curators before, and it really does depend. Like, the idea behind the show, who's coming up with the idea and what have you, kind of it informs you as to how to move. You know, sometimes art is just art. It's like, hey, I just want to put my art out there. But other times, it's really like, what is the real idea here that you're trying to put out, and how do I contribute it, or how are you using me in this particular space? Do I want to be used in that way? So those are some of the reasons why I would say either yes or no to something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would like to add to that too. Like, Kim's humanity is off the chain.
Mhm.
I mean, she just resonates, such humanity, and it's like there's no way to possibly even say no.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, how can you say no? You could just feel it, and coupled with the fact that she's about her business, and she's about her business, you have no question that she's gonna deliver, you know, and it's an honor and a pleasure to work with her.
Good.
Definitely,
Good.
yeah.
Good. Good. All right. So when people come to the space, because the exhibit is up until the 16th, when people walk into the space, what do you want them to take in? What do you hope they will take in? Okay, this is
I
radio. We
hope
have to be talking.
I hope they take it. I hope they take in the fact that there are so many different stories in the world, not just your own story, but other people's story. I want them to delve into, uh, you know, each artist, you know, whatever they're trying to say, what we all are trying to say, listen and observe and think about it, and, the fact that there's an artist who is from Gaza in the show is really powerful and really timely, and it shows that Kim has as a curator, has a respect for what is going on in the world, period. Worldwide. Not just. I'm very proud to be a part of this exhibition because it touches on a number of things on multiple levels, and it's up to you to interpret, what's being said. Uh, it doesn't preach to you, but it definitely is an eye opener. So my thing would be to be willing to see.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I'd agree. I don't
I
have
want
too
to
much.
build on that and just say, I hope that people feel they can ask questions. I think, as a society, we've gotten away from it because it can feel uncomfortable, or there's going to be, pitchforks and torches if you ask a question. And I think there has to be some level of, like we say, we speak to her humanity. And I hope that we can treat our audience members the same way as artists. I think, as an artist, you're putting something out there by being in an exhibition. So you have to be open to having a dialogue and to, answer questions so that we can find a common ground. You go to the museum, you go to the gallery to be challenged. And I hope that people feel challenged with the content in this show. I hope that they feel, that there's something within that they have to reconcile themselves, because I know that we as artists always are searching for that reconciliation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so folks are going to come see this through March 16th at the Creative Arts Workshop Gallery Space, which is in Audubon Plaza Square, whatever. And they're going to come in. You already had the artist talk February 17th, I believe. Y'all had a wonderful discussion. I'm sorry I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
be there. I was in Senegal and just got back.
Oh, nice.
But I heard tell it was good. So tell me something. Do you like when artists get to talk about their work in community with a talk?
Speaking for myself, I found our artist talk incredibly powerful. First of all, often an artist, in describing their own work, will tell you about either their experiences or the reflection or the technique that may not be inherent to the first-time viewer. So that was a really wonderful experience. I was just fascinated. So the three people on this in this program had a chance to talk, and I learned so much about who you are as people, as well as who you are as artists, and then really gathered an understanding. So I hope that's what people will see. I should say that in response to your previous question, One of the things that is particularly stunning about this show is that every single piece in the show has so much stature. None of the pieces is small. They're all quite big. Kim has given them lots of room, but each one will take some time to understand and to spend that time with. And I think that that's really lovely about the show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Artists, do you all like talking about your art in community at a talk? I mean, does that add to it? Does that give folks an opportunity to see the creator behind the creative?
It does. I've learned to like it, or not necessarily like it, but I've learned to get used to it. I'm not. You know, like I feel, and I don't say this is about our artists, but we're like, we create it, it's here. You know what I mean? Like, love it, be into it. But talking, or writing about my art has always been a problem for me. Like, in extent, because it's like, I just want to get straight to it. So, and that's why I just created and just let it be. But I've gotten used to it. And I like it more now because it then brings them more of an understanding, you know what I mean? Allowing people to really understand what you were going through in the moment of creating it, or the ideas that were, you know, flowing through. So I have a learned appreciation for it. But I like being with the other artists. That's the thing. I love having conversations with other artists and being in their space, but explaining the work is what I've learned to appreciate more now.
Mm-hmm. 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 I like that. Bethany, you have something you want to add to that?
I was just gonna say it helps me beat the impending sense of imposter syndrome I feel a lot of artists go through. It's like, you know, you're in it when you're in your studio, but then it's like it feels like this way of defending it to the public, or defending it to, you know, your fellow Black and brown people, and they're gonna call you on your you know, your BS. So it's a great tool to better yourself, even if it feels uncomfortable or a little bit daunting, you know, leading up to it. I always walk away from an artist talk, a gallery talk, any sort of interview, feeling like I'm more in tune with my practice, you know, since there's that dissonance between creating the piece and then showing the piece.
Hey,
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. So, all right. So you're here. Your artwork is up until March 16th. Do you start thinking about where else it goes, or do you step into another exhibit that's vastly different from the one you're in? How does the creative process work in showing your art and being invited to spaces?
I think that like for me, it'll happen where, you know, being in a show, being introduced to new people, and then that just keeps opening the different avenues of you know, exhibiting opportunities and what have you. And then sometimes there's a lull, but that doesn't stop you from even coming up with your own exhibits. Like for me, again, I've been a curator as well, or I am a curator as well. So in addition to creating work just for the sake of creating work, and exploring my own ideas, I'm also at the same time thinking of exhibit ideas as well, just in case an opportunity or space pops up. I used to run a gallery in Bridgeport also for 2 years, so that was another space to like get those things off. But yeah, it's like a river, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's a rush of things that are happening, and multiple exhibits and what have you. So like for me now, I'm in multiple exhibits and, you know, doing a couple things here and there. And then other times it could be a little stagnant, but those quiet times are where you really have the opportunity to have new ideas kind of come in.
I love it. I love it. All right. So when you think about your own creativity, where do you take your inspiration from?
Me personally, I feel like I'm jumping in all the time.
No, any of y'all.
For me, it's all it's all culture. It's culture, it's color. Because I love color. Color. Everything is color. But every point of my life, you know, growing up Costa Rican, loving plantains and macaroni and cheese, and different types of music, and the influence of my father and his musical taste, and just everything, flora, fauna, air, whatever. It just all just finds its way in some kind of way.
I love it. Anybody else want to jump in?
Jump in. I I always am like reading things, so literature, articles, what I find on the internet, just like weird things related to like current events, not even like necessarily the heavy stuff, but kind of like the little like absurdities of life. And I find that those are the things, popular culture, those are the things that really drive my practice, and what inspire me to make something is kind of finding these connections and then making a piece of art. It's like oddly conceptual in nature, but like also I'm like not a cisgender white male, so it kind of has this really interesting twist when like you might be using different techniques, but it's elevated because of your identity, and so it kind of it leaves this like really interesting mark. I don't know.
So who are y'all tracking these days? Like who are y'all what are y'all as artists? Who are y'all checking out these days?
Chinese contemporary art. So I'm looking at Li Song, Song Dong, Chao Fei. So I'm looking very globally at people who don't necessarily have the same experience as me, because I find that is also really interesting. But I think Chinese contemporary art is taking the lead.
Anyone else? Whose gallery stuff are you checking out? Who you liking?
The artist I just I hate to say discovered, like I found this person, but who caught my attention. You want to be Columbus and people's stuff, but April Bay, I believe her name is April Bay, and she's from the Caribbean, and she does this thing with AI and creates these fantastical African-based characters, but it's like I think they're called the Atlanteans or what have you. And it's like, she brings in the nature aspect of it, but then the future Afrofuturism, AI, and the characters are amazing. And then she uses those, she creates the characters and then puts them on these tapestries. And it's like really, really beautiful work, because I love collage things and multi-layered things like Mickalene Thomas. And so she has recently caught my eye, April Bay.
Okay.
I would like to say that I like the work of Leonardo Drew. I went to the print fair at what was it? It was in Park Ave on Thursday, and it was at the Armory. Yeah, the Armory. And he's originally from somewhere in the South, I think Nashville, but he grew up in Bridgeport. And the pieces are incredible. They're like very textured, and they seem to be made from some kind of recycled materials. And I'm very much into environmentalism, so his work has really impacted me. And also Bisa Butler, just love her work, love the texture, the layers, the history, all of that. Yeah. There's so many artists. So those are just two.
I love it. We got a few more minutes before we wrap up. With this whole onslaught of AI, artificial intelligence driven art, is there room in the world for them to sit at the same table as other artists, as mixed media artists? Is there room at the table for new ways to make art? And can it be embraced and accepted and hang alongside traditional, what we consider traditional mixed media kind of art?
I hated AI. I was like, what is this? They're taking everything, especially because I'm also a teacher. You know what I mean? Like I'm an actual teacher. I teach art, and I work with mainly middle school and high school, but in seeing these kids' fascination with the quick, they low attention span, quick things, blah, 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 blah. So they don't a good majority of them don't even have the appreciation for the long form of art, the waiting, the patience, the putting the layer, and da da da. So this AI thing comes in, and it's like, oh, I could just tell it what colors I want and what type of character, bam, 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 boom, it creates a thing. I just print it out on some piece of paper and put it up on the wall. It's art. And I didn't like that. Um, and I still don't in some ways, but then I see how some other artists are using it. Like, for example, the artist I mentioned, um, she's using it in a very particular way, and I really, really enjoyed that, how she used that, like you said, in a multimedia type of way of layering it and collaging it, and using it in this way and that way, but as a base. It's also good too if you are an artist, I feel, and you struggle sometimes, because sometimes we just have like a brain freeze. You know what I mean? So you could pop in a couple words and maybe get something and start jogging your ideas by way of being inspired by something you quote unquote created. The only problem with AI is that the source material is usually other people's work. So it's taking multiple different artists' work and putting it together and giving you something. Not unlike what you do with yourself when you're reading books and getting inspired, um but it's like a copyright thing, you know what I mean? So that's also the other issues
Yeah.
with the guy.
Mm.
I'm concerned about the craftsmanship of
Mm-hmm.
AI. Like, where does that come in? It has, this, to me, a small potential to become what hip hop has become for music, in the sense of people always sampling and taking from something that's pre-existing, right? But it's the
Mm-hmm.
real artistry that stays with you. Um, like Aisha said, you're dealing with copyright and stuff like that. Um, I'm interested in people who create work where the artistry shines through. Other than that,
Right.
I hated the AI situation off the rip, because I just felt like, you know, where's the in my I'm a messy artist, right? I could try to be smooth, but you're gonna find a fingerprint somewhere. It's like, where's your fingerprint? Where's that, piece
Mm-hmm.
of paint that kind of dripped off to the side, even
Mm-hmm.
though you didn't want it to? Where's
Yeah.
that is with AI, you know?
Mm.
So
Mm. Bethany, do you want to chime in before we wrap up?
Because this conversation, totally valid points from both of you, and I couldn't agree more. But it does remind me of like the turn of the 20th century, when photography started becoming a thing, and there was this article
Mm.
written called "The End of Painting," and it's like, yeah, there's still people that question like the validity of photography. And then the same thing happened
Mm-hmm.
with like Procreate and Photoshop, when like digital
Mm-hmm.
artists started moving from like comic books that were traditionally drafted by hand to like now people do it on their iPad. And it
Mm-hmm.
just is kind of this moment of, I feel like AI is a little bit more, not a little bit, it's a lot more, discriminatory. Like it's ethically, there are so many issues where there are not those same ethical issues in those other practices. But it
Mm-hmm.
just reminds me that it's not like the argument of there's space for all of us, but there is always going to be space for painting, and there's always going to be space for your fingerprint. And so
Mm-hmm.
I always just like to tell, like, students that I have that are kind of concerned about that, I'm like, you don't let it bother you. Like, forget it. It's not going to be remembered in posterity like your work.
Mm.
Mm.
Okay. So, Creative Arts Workshop presents Made Visible: Origins and Belonging, an exhibition that tells stories rooted in the commonalities of Black and Brown identities, curated by the fabulously talented Kim Weston. Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, Shonda. Thank you,
Thank
Bethany. And thank you, Trina Learn, for coming on and having this wonderful, rich conversation. The exhibit runs through March 16th. Get yourself there so that you can be part of this bigger, larger conversation of this exhibit. So, and see where your commonalities are when you look at it. Thank y'all so much. I enjoyed this
Thank you.
conversation.
thank
Thank
you.
you for having us.
I look forward to seeing y'all out here in these art streets.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your week. And I'm going to make my way over to CAW so that I can see this exhibit. I've been wanting to see it ever since it was talked about, so I can't wait. So thank y'all for your time this morning, and I'll see y'all soon. Thanks,
you.
Harry
Bye-bye.
and Nora and whoever else is behind the scenes today. Thank y'all. I guess we're going to have some music to play us out because we are on our way out. Thank y'all for making my first day back fun. I'll be back tomorrow. All right, music.
I wanna dance.